You're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Marcus Miller, his biography, and best hits. Born in Brooklyn in 1959, Marcus was surrounded by music from the start. With a father who was a church organist, gospel and soul were part of his everyday soundtrack. By his teenage years, Marcus was already playing multiple instruments. But it was the bass that became his calling card, that signature bass sound, instant recognizable, instantly legendary. Early on, Marcus made waves as a session musician, collaborating with some of the biggest names in music: Luther Vandross, Aretha Franklin, David Sanborn, and most famously Miles Davis. In the mid-1980s, he composed and produced Tutu, reinventing Miles' sound with synthesizers, drum machines, and a fresh modern groove. By his late 20s, Marcus had evolved from sideman to musical architect. In the 1990s, he stepped fully into the spotlight with solo albums like The Sun Don't Lie, fusing funk, jazz, and cinematic storytelling. Later projects, M Squared, Aphrodisia, and Laid Back show him thinking globally, collaborating with orchestras, African percussionists, and neo-soul vocalists, proving jazz can be both profound and accessible. Marcus Miller isn't just a bassist, he's a storyteller, a groove innovator, and a bridge connecting generations of listeners and musicians alike. On this week's episode, it's about Marcus Miller, his life and times, and best hits. During this hour, we're going to be talking about his biography. Born in Brooklyn, New York in 1959, Marcus Miller grew up surrounded by music. His father was a church organist and choir director, so gospel and soul were part of his DNA. By the time most kids were learning their first chords, Marcus was already mastering multiple instruments: clarinet, keyboards, and of course the electric bass, which would become his signature voice. By the late 1970s, Miller was already one of the most sought-after sessions musicians in New York. He played with everyone: Aretha Franklin, Grover Washington Jr., and David Sanborn, laying down that unmistakable groove, crisp, melodic, and full of attitude. But it wasn't just his playing, it was his feel. The thumb and finger slap tone became his trademark, equal parts funk and equal parts finesse. Then came the collaboration that changed jazz forever: Miles Davis. In 1986, Miller produced and composed a groundbreaking album called Tutu, redefining the sound of modern jazz. Miles had come back from a long hiatus, and Marcus handed him a new world: electronic textures, drum machines, synth bass, and emotional storytelling through sound. It was bold, futuristic, and deeply human. Their partnership continued through albums like Mandla and Siesta, and by the end of it, Marcus wasn't just a sideman, he was a co-architect of Miles' second electric revolution. But Miller didn't stop there. He moved effortlessly into producing pop, R&B, and soul legends, from Luther Vandross to Chaka Khan. He co-wrote and produced some of Luther's biggest hits, including Never Too Much and Power of Love. In the studio, Marcus had this rare ability to make music feel alive, technical brilliance married to emotional truth. In the 1990s, Miller finally stepped forward as a solo artist. Albums like The Sun Don't Lie and Tales proved that bass could tell stories without a single lyric. His music carried the history of jazz fusion but reimagined it for a new generation, fusing funk, hip-hop, and soul into something entirely his own. Fast forward to the 2000s and beyond, and you'll see Marcus expanding his world even further. With M Squared and Silver Rain, he took jazz into cinematic territory, big, lush, and accessible. A Night in Monte Carlo brought him together with a symphony orchestra, showing his range as a composer and conductor. Then came Aphrodisia, a project born from his role as UNESCO Artist for Peace, tracing the African diaspora through rhythm and sound. Today, Marcus Miller stands as a living bridge between eras, from Miles Davis to modern hip-hop jazz, from the church to the concert hall. His legacy isn't just in the notes he plays, but in how he's redefined the role of a bassist, not just a supporting voice, but a storyteller, innovator, and leader. You're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Marcus Miller, his biography, and best hits. Now it's time for some trending album news. This was trending hot on the jazz charts: the best of George Benson. This career-spanning collection is pure class, the ultimate sample of Benson's genius as both a guitarist and a vocalist. Born in Pittsburgh back in 1943, George Benson started performing professionally before he was even 20, and by the mid-70s, he'd bridge jazz, R&B, and pop like nobody else. This compilation, originally released on Warner Brothers in 95, brings together all the key cuts from his crossover years. Tracks like This Masquerade, On Broadway, and Give Me the Night. You get that signature fluid guitar tone, the silky scatting in sync with his solos, and production that just oozes polish and sophistication. Whether you're into the instrumental brilliance or those easy vocal grooves, Benson delivers that perfect blend of warmth, groove, and elegance. So if you're looking for a getaway into George Benson's world, this compilation is the one to start with. And that was some trendy music news on the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. We're going for a short break, we'll be right back after that. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some of Marcus Miller's best albums of all time. Stay tuned. You're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Marcus Miller, his biography, and best hits. During this hour, we're going to be talking about some of his best albums. Here's a quick recap of what's coming up. Marcus Miller's bass has powered icons from Miles Davis to Luther Vandross, so let's talk about some of his biggest solo moments. We start things off with The Sun Don't Lie, that hard-hitting 93 statement where Miller showed the world that the bass could sing. Then Tales from 95, a musical documentary that blends jazz, hip-hop, and the African-American story, featuring voices like Lala Hathaway and Q-Tip. Next up, M Squared, the 2001 Grammy winner that brought back the slick urban groove, packed with guests like Herbie Hancock and Chaka Khan. And rounding off, Silver Rain, Miller's masterclass in reinterpretation, from Clapton to Macy Gray, mixing pop, funk and pure soul. Each record proves why Marcus Miller isn't just a bassist, he's a storyteller through groove. You're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Marcus Miller, his biography and best hits. During this summer, we're going to be talking about some of his best albums. These are the moments that defined his sound and the grooves that changed the direction of contemporary jazz. Let's start things off with a record that put him on the map as a solo force, The Sun Don't Lie, released in 1993. After years as a sideman and producer for giants like Miles Davis and Luther Vandross, Marcus stepped out from behind the board to make his own statement. The early 90s were a strange time for jazz. Fusion had cooled off, smooth jazz was everywhere, and the genre was searching for its identity again. Then came The Sun Don't Lie, a hard-hitting, funk-driven, cinematic work that reminded everyone that groove is still a philosophy. His bass isn't just an instrument here, it's a storyteller. You can hear the confidence, the melodic sensibility and that unmistakable punch that only Marcus can bring. Tracks like Panther and Steve Lund bring his rhythmic fire to the front, and The King Is Gone becomes a moving elegy to Miles Davis. With guests like Wayne Shorter, David Sanborn and Bernard Wright, this album bridges eras, 70s fusion meets 90s polish. It's a sound of a musician defining his own identity and in doing so, shaping the future of jazz funk itself. Next up, Tales from 1995. If The Sun Don't Lie was Marcus Miller's statement of musical independence, Tales was his statement of purpose. This album feels like a collection of stories about heritage, about rhythm. It's a bold blend of spoken word, hip-hop grooves, gospel chords and deep pocket funk. Marcus invites us to listen, not just to his bass, but to the voices that shape the African-American experience. Tracks like Rush Over featuring Meshel Ndegeocello and Strange Fruit, reimagined with haunting beauty, prove that jazz can be both socially aware and deeply musical. Lala Hathaway and Q-Tip lend their voices, making the record a tapestry of urban spirituality and reflection. It's a record that predates the socially conscious jazz of artists like Robert Glasper, a full decade earlier. Tales is Miller at his most poetic, using the bass as both narrator and heartbeat. Now fast forward 2001. After a few years of touring, producing and refining his sound, Marcus returned with a powerhouse, M Squared. This album is Marcus Miller at full command of his craft, slick, urban, cinematic. It's an audio landscape mixing orchestral textures, tight funk grooves and acoustic jazz phrasing. It's as much about production as it's about performance. On M Squared, you'll hear legends like Herbie Hancock, Wayne Shorter and Chaka Khan, a dream lineup that reflects Miller's deep respect within the musical community. From the groove explosion of Boomerang to the elegant phrasing of Ozzel Interlude, every track carries that blend of virtuosity and restraint that defines his artistry. It's no surprise that M Squared went on to win a Grammy for Best Contemporary Jazz Album and reasserted Marcus as one of the few artists who could truly bridge old-school fusion and 21st century jazz production. By 2005, Miller was ready to push his sound even further into new genres, new audiences. That's when he dropped Silver Rain, a crossover record that brought together jazz, funk, blues, even classic pop. Here, Marcus takes on reinterpretations of familiar songs, from Stevie Wonder's Boogie on Reggae Woman to Edgar Winter's Frankenstein. But he never imitates, he reinvents. His arrangements are so rich and soulful that you forget these are covers at all. The guest list is staggering. Eric Clapton, Macy Gray, Gerald Albright, each bring a different color to the canvas. And through it all, Marcus's bass remains the center of gravity, whether he's laying down a slow groove or firing off rhythmic bursts that feel like conversation. Silver Rain is nostalgic yet modern, a reminder that jazz funk can evolve without losing its soul. It's a masterclass in musical direction, showing us that Marcus Miller isn't just a bassist, he's a storyteller, a curator and innovator. Across these albums, you can trace the evolution of a true artist, from The Sun Don't Lie's self-discovery to Tales' reflection and message, to M Square's technical brilliance, and finally Silver Rain's reinvention of sound. And you're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Marcus Miller, his biography and best hits. Now it's time for some trending album news. The Lisa Hilton Quintet is back with their fluid and elegant new album, Extended Daydream. Pianist and composer Lisa Hilton has long been known for her lyrical touch and inventive spirit, and with this record, she proves once again why she's one of the most compelling voices in modern jazz. Extended Daydream drops November 28th, and it's got that signature Hilton blend, sophisticated, emotional, and beautifully fluid. Featuring an all-star lineup, J.D. Allen on tenor sax, Igma Thomas on trumpet, Lou Curtis on bass, and Rudy Royson on drums, this album moves effortlessly between eras and genres. Hilton reimagines Miles Davis' So What, even takes on Billie Eilish's Wildflower, mixing modal jazz with modern pop in the smoothest way possible. But it's the originals that really shine, tracks like Extended Daydream, Momentary Mystery, and Tropical Tuesday show her knack for crafting melodic stories, while pieces like Seabirds and Blues on the Beach bring introspection and heart. This album feels like a late afternoon drive, cinematic, free and full of color. If you're looking for something that bridges classic cool jazz with today's edge, Extended Daydream is a must listen. And then with some trendy music news on the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan Silva. We'll be right back after some music. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some of Marcus Miller's best albums of all time. Stay tuned.